Hi, everyone. It's Candace Craw-Goldman from quantumhealers.com. And I'm here today to talk with one of my favorite quantum healers, Tina Dodds. Hi, Tina.
Hi, Candace. So good to be here.
It's so great to see you. As always, I always get a little lift talking with you. I feel like you're such a kindred spirit.
Yeah, I definitely feel that connection with you as well.
You say something and I'm like, is the girl in my head? Because it's exactly right. And you know, we've had this catch up, this date penciled in and put in the calendar for quite a little while. And I don't know, like 2 days ago, you post this blog and it's like, well, I guess that's what we're talking about. So Tina, who is a Beyond Quantum Healing practitioner, along with some other things she offers out there in the spiritual realm. She's an author as well and has a partner. They do some amazing work. She wrote a blog. Oh,
and we have a guest.
This is Tam.
Hi, Tam.
Tam has needed quite a bit of attention today. This is Lauren at Tam. Spiritual Extremism is the name of the blog, and we will of course post it below in the show notes. But it was just so timely, just so perfect. I wrote a few tiny little notes, and I definitely want you to introduce it and to talk about it. But you know, I started thinking, well, I had so many thoughts.
I would love to hear all of your thoughts.
Well, there isn't enough time for that at all. But it just brought up a whole lot of things. But let me start by asking you, because it was such a thoughtful, and it was I'm actually getting goosebumps getting ready to say this. It was such a thoughtful and complete essay. This is something you've been thinking about for a while. And you're kind of, I mean, I can imagine you going about your day and sort of thinking and adding and putting together these thoughts. But I want to ask you directly, how long had you been thinking about writing this? And tell me a little bit more about how this beautiful blog article came to be.
I literally had not been thinking about writing it. It just came out of me that day.
Oh my goodness. Well, you must have been thinking about the concept.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that I can think that may be a better question. You know,
yeah,
you've been thinking about all of these things for a while, but it just coalesced so beautifully.
The concepts were definitely swirling and swirling and swirling. And I'm like, I need to put this down so that I can organize the thoughts. And that's what I did. And I literally spent all day doing it so that I could take them out of my mind in their disorganized fashion and really put them down to see what is going on here, you know, because it's the feeling that something is happening. This new consciousness is kind of erupting in the field and not knowing really what exactly it is. So it was kind of me parsing it out, really. That's what the article was. Yeah.
There was just some wonderful conclusions, and the part about you know, the divisions across society is something that I've noticed. You know, 2020 brought that to a fore in a couple of different big cultural ways. How about you go down for a little bit? Yes. You know, that we probably don't need to get into. There's no reason to rehash that. But the thing that was quite apparent to me, and at first it was, and you and I talked about this right away, so disturbing to me personally, was the split down pretty apparent and obvious and very similar lines to other groups in the spiritual community. It was literally shocking to me.
Shocking. Yeah.
It was shocking.
Yeah.
And yet, as I was watching it happen, you know, there was a little part of me that was sad. I became more curious. And then I started thinking more about timelines and how people present themselves and then how they really are. And then also how and why this is all working and on a bigger scale. And I think some of my conclusions, you've come to in this article. So I'll just kind of let you introduce some of the major concepts, if you would. What do you mean by spiritual extremism?
Spiritual extremism is this thing that I've been noticing and observing happening within the community. And it honestly surprises me. Just like you said, you felt shocked by it. It's very surprising to me that spiritual people, right, can become so polarized instead of coming together on issues. But it's moving into these very extreme ways of thinking in the spiritual realm. And what I see happening is it's almost as if we had this only kind of one way of thinking. It's like the awakening is happening. We're coming out of organized religion, right? And we're beginning to see through the deception of that. And then we come out of that and we're kind of funneled right into this new age way of thinking. And we hang out there for a while and we kind of feel that out and look at all the different beliefs and ideas and paradigms that entails. And so what I see happening now, and that can be a very unbalanced way of thinking, believing, behaving as well. And so what I see happening now is this whole boomerang effect that is happening in opposition to and as a result of the new age. And so what I call it is the anti-new age. And it's kind of swinging to the opposite side. It is calling out the deceptions of the new age, which there are some, and rightfully so, but it's taking it to a new extreme in this very polarized fashion, where absolutely anything that ever was or is associated with new age thought is now a deception. And so that's what I mean by the new age, in the way I sense it, is a very almost toxic feminine energy, in the way that we kind of ignore the darkness. We're only focusing on light, raising our vibration, not integrating the darkness into the physical, grounding that energy down, but just kind of ignoring it and burying our heads in the sand. It's a very, the search for bliss, the search for higher beings to guide us and heal us and those kinds of things, taking us out of our bodies, with the channelings and all of those kinds of things. It's not very grounded, but it feels like a more toxic feminine energy to me. And then on what's happening in the polar opposite to that is this new toxic masculine energy that is emerging in the anti-new age, which is also happening in mainstream. If you look, it's happening everywhere, but it always surprises me when it happens in spirituality, because we're supposed to know better, right? We're supposed to be more conscious than that. And so this new toxic masculine energy is arising in response to the toxic feminine. And it's very much like, now things like love and gratitude and light and not judging, those are all deceptions now. It's taking everything to the absolute extreme. And I've just been noticing like how these energies are being in opposition to each other, and hoping that we can find some middle ground here, because really it's all about balance. It's about finding balance and grounding those energies down, healing the toxic feminine and toxic masculine, and grounding those energies. So
I started feeling strings of this, or hints of this, shall we say, even before the last couple of years, back when anybody who acknowledged something that wasn't fluffy bunnies and wonderful and then wanted to talk about it was called focusing on fear and negativity. It's like, wait a second.
Fear-based, yeah.
Yes. I'm
Fear-based.
acknowledging something and this is actually happening. And some of the response you would get was, well, you're just operating in fear-based thinking. It's like, what?
Ugh,
I
that
mean,
drives me crazy. That drives me crazy.
that has been driving me crazy for a while. So that's been going on for a while, but then it's just sort of boomed in the other way.
Mhm.
Why don't you give us an example, like one of your words, your trigger words, and
Oh,
how
yeah.
that plays out on both sides? Because I think you did a wonderful job in your article talking about that.
Thank you. Yeah, there's certain trigger words now that garner a big response from people. The one that comes to me right now is love. And so on one side of the spectrum, the anti-New Age talks a lot about love bombing. And love bombing is obviously different than true and unconditional love, right? And so love bombing is an attempt by a human or an entity to persuade or manipulate through the use of love and showering you with love, right? Telling you everything you want to hear. And what it's really doing is playing on your wound of feeling unloved, right? To some extent, many of us have grown up feeling unloved. So many of us have that wound, and that wound can be manipulated. And so many humans with personality disorders can use this sort of love bombing to manipulate their way into your life and then create all kinds of havoc. And so many of us, including myself and most of my clients, have experienced something like this. And so that concept in itself is extremely important to be aware of, that this thing happens, that this illusory type of love can be used to manipulate people. But it's not true love. And you can't lump all of love into this category. Many people on that side of things also talk about this love bomb that happens after we leave the body and go into the afterlife realms. And, a lot of NDEers talk about the experience of this all-encompassing love that they feel, and then they're forced back into their bodies against their will. And, so there's that. So there's also, and that goes into all of these questions about the afterlife realms and are we even being manipulated there, and those kinds of things, which I'm not going to get into right now. But that's an idea that's also kind of coming up now. So when people are examining these concepts and seeing how humans and entities can use love as a weapon, it's a weaponized form of love. So that's how one side is viewing it. And the other side, the toxic feminine side of this, can use love to bypass real issues, to, you just have to love everyone, send everybody love. And, even your enemies, even your abusers, even your torturers, even the controllers and all of this kind of stuff. And that too is an ungrounded way of seeing things. And so neither of those ideas are really, we need to know about both, but we always need to come back into balance and know that true, pure, unconditional love does exist. It does exist, and it is not manipulative, and it is not controlling, and it is not forceful. And many will say that, and many NDEers have even experienced, when they do go and visit the other side, the one question that always comes back is, have you learned enough about love? And I think that's something that we need to examine within our own lives. Have we learned enough about love? is that what we're really doing here? Or is that another deception, which the other side says it might be, you know? So there's all this kind of confusion that's happening. And really where I'm at is trying to find the middle road, trying to find balance and saying that, yes, there is true love. It does exist. It can exist even here on earth in this very inverted kind of system. I've experienced it myself in my relationship with Karen, you know, like the both of us have experienced the love bombing. We've experienced the distorted experience of love within this realm, and then have also found unconditional love within each other in that relationship. So we're kind of the examples of showing both sides, like, yes, both exist, both do exist, and we have to find some kind of compromise in the middle where we're not lumping all of love into love bombing, because it's just not true.
After reading your article and then sort of looking it over again this morning, I started thinking about this concept. The very first time I ever heard anyone ever actually say this to me was back in 2015. It's the first time I ever heard, and I was talking to somebody. I was on a spiritual trip, at, a retreat in Europe with some lovely people. And there was a very well-known person there. And I was talking about a situation where I was, maybe let's say it, maybe love bombed for that person's benefit and my chagrin, as it turns out later. And I was talking about some of that. And I remember her saying, well, I'm going to choose Team Candace over team. I'm not going to mention who that was. And I remember, even as I was sort of like, well, thanks for the vote of confidence, but what? Kind of what, right? I mean, this isn't a team or whatever, but it was my first, and I vividly remember everything about it. I was on a tour bus when all of that was happening. We were getting off the tour bus when she said that. And after that, I started noticing that people really were. They were queuing up for team this or team that. When I was asking, Tam is just still she's like beating the bushes wanting some attention. When I was like, well, when I'm over here viewing it, there's things to see and know about this team or view, and there's over here, but I don't choose either team. What is this team thing? And it's only gotten worse since then, right? I mean, and this whole idea of extremism is landing in a lot of different places in our culture. And you know what? I started thinking of this too. The definitions of words. Yes. Like this is huge. This definition, it plays right into, or the redefining of words plays right into this whole concept of extremism, because that's being manipulated. And we have this fabulous conversation going on in our forum at quantumhealers.com. And somebody else brought in this concept of confusion. And I thought, well, that plays into that, right?
Yes. Yeah, I thought that was so brilliant. And she kind of like just that one word alone summed up my entire article. This is exactly what's happening. I feel like the confusion is being injected into everything by the dark ones, or whatever you want to call them. But that's how they create that and then feed off of that, because then we don't have any ground to stand on. No one knows where they stand or what's happening. And it's just this big ball of confusion. I thought that was brilliant.
It truly, truly was. And we're, of course, speaking of our colleague, Heather Holm, who does some marvelous channeling work with her husband. She writes about that as well. The redefining of words, and just bringing things that we know intuitively and telling us we can't know that only experts can know about this particular thing, and only these experts can know about this particular thing. But really, what you need is to be within, and your truth and your balance and your understanding is within. And don't we go back to the little boy who is the one who's pointing to the emperor with no clothes. I mean, he's just a little boy, but he knows when he sees a dude walking around naked. And if you ask me, there's a lot of naked dudes walking around.
Yeah, there's a lot of naked dudes. Yeah, and I think that comes back to our discernment. And really, I mean, if we can look at it in a more positive light, what it's allowing us to do is to sharpen that, to go within, to say, what is my truth? How do I discern truth? And really the clearer our vessel is, the more we'll able to be able to tap into that discernment and find the truth for ourselves. It's only through going within that we can make sense out of anything going on in the outside world, because it's all just created to cause confusion. And so, yeah, the going within and finding out those answers for yourself, I think, is where we need to be. And I think Heather even mentioned that in that post about, just kind of coming back from it all and just being with yourself and going within is the place to be right now, because the outside world is literally insane. It's literally insane.
It is crazy, isn't it? You can get all caught up in it. One of the words that you talk about that I think is another one that started a little while ago, but has really come into play right now, is the trigger word judgment. And people will make this statement. They'll say, well, I'm not judging, or I'm not, I don't judge, or whatever. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. If you are a human and you are on the planet, you judge. You do. And you have to. If you don't think about what's in front of you, which is a form of judging, I'm going to judge whether or not it's safe for me to cross the road right now. Yes, I'm going to do that. And of course, there's obvious destructive ways of making blanket sorts of judgments and things. But even the word prejudice, so like, that's playing out in our society too right now. Like, you can't be prejudiced against this group or that group or this concept or whatever. I heard somebody talking about this other day in a completely non-spiritual way. Just they were talking about sports. They were talking about who should be allowed to do what in what sports and what the parameters were. And there's this whole compassionate, you can't judge people, you have to, let them be. And then there's this whole other side of it. And one person came up with something I thought was pretty interesting. She said, well, my son is in Little League, and I want everyone in the Little League to be able to be welcome to come and play, but we will be prejudiced in this way. If a grown man wants to come play against my 6-year-old and his friends on the Little League team, yeah, we're going to be prejudiced about that. We're going to say, you know what, this team right here is for little boys to play their game, and that doesn't affect this other being. He can go find, this adult person can go find a place where he can go enjoy the game as well, but we can have our group without it being infiltrated. Why is this something that we have to defend? Where did that come from?
I know. Talk about extremes.
Right.
Like when you have to worry about adults showing up to play on your child's baseball team, I mean, that's where we are.
Don't judge. What if he identifies as a 6-year-old boy?
Right. Right. This is where we are now in this. It's this really slippery slope of accepting everything. Right. In the name of non-judgment, accepting everything, whether it's right or wrong, because there is no right or wrong anymore. This is where we're slipping into this like moral relativism. What is morally right and wrong? And it's lumping everything in together. It's like, and that's another thing with that, the toxic feminine of the new age is there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong, because each soul has, chosen its specific path, whether it's light or dark or whatever. And we just have to accept that and send them love and all of those things. And we get into a slippery slope because maybe from the highest perspective, that's true, but that's not where we are right now. We are dense and deep in 3D right here.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to judge and discern for ourselves what is morally right and wrong, and then have boundaries. We're losing our boundaries now. It's like they're just slipping away. And instead of having strong and firm and healthy boundaries, there's none at all. And it's just this having to accept everything that's put in front of you. And one of those things I included in the blog was, the minor attracted persons, the acceptance of this kind of idea, which are basically, I don't know if I want to say that in your video, but I guess you can, what
put
I'm
the word
saying.
in my head. I know what you're talking about. So is everybody else who's probably
Right.
listening right now. It begins with a P.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's this idea that we need to accept everything. It's very extreme.
It's nuts. Yeah. When I see any of those kinds of conversations, I always think, well, are you a parent? And if you're not, maybe try to imagine being one, and your child's there. Is the same conversation? These people talking these lofty goals, but bring it down to your front door. Are you going to invite them in? How about that minor attractive person? Why you want to hire him as a babysitter?
Right.
I don't know. Maybe not. Right.
Right.
Oh gosh. Yeah, this whole polarization thing, like you said, it's the pendulum swinging, but it's gone so far. And we've been talking about an inverted world for a little while. I don't know. Do you think we have a chance of it starting to shift anytime soon?
Honestly, Candace, I used to be very much more hopeful. But I'm losing that hope a little bit in my own personal evolution. I have disconnected myself from what's going on Earth for my own well-being, because being connected to the collective, you're just kind of the way it's like being washed back and forth in a washing machine.
Yeah.
You never have any stability. You never feel grounded. You're hanging on to hope that, we're moving into the new earth and things are shifting. I don't see it shifting in a positive direction. That's not what I see with my eyes when I look around. Like, we might be told that through all of these channelings and things that are happening, but I don't see that with my own eyes, especially in this conversation, as we're talking about the polarization and the extremes. I feel like that's going to continue to play out, the polarization, and we're going to polarize more and more and more. And then maybe eventually, thousands of years from now, it will come back around into unity. Maybe we need to polarize as a collective in order to parse it out and become more individualized and more sovereign in who we are, like kind of disconnecting from some of us are disconnecting from the groupthink, and some people are moving further into it. So I don't know. I've kind of just my focus now is how to get out of here and never come back. Really, that's where my focus is. It's like, how I don't know in this system the way it is, if it is even possible for it to change. So yeah, my focus is really on how can I make the best out of my life while I'm here, and allow that energy to ripple out into the work, into the clients that are attracted to us, into friends, family, things like that. But as far as the entire world goes, I don't know.
I swing around myself day to day. There's some people who are just so lovely and so wonderful to be around. Sometimes I wonder if some of the more negative, the louder people really are more of a minority. I try to keep that in mind as a way of thinking about it. But that then again, that's one of the reasons why I tend to be a little more outspoken
Yeah.
than some of some of us in our community who do say things like, well, I'm just not going to give that any of my attention. I'm just going to focus on these things over here. Well, that's okay to a point, but if you don't acknowledge and keep your boundaries and just sort of go, la, 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 you do whatever you want, though, they're going to keep pushing, and they're going to push into your realm, right? And if it's not into your realm, maybe it's into your family's realm or your children's realm. And so not acknowledging any of it, I think, is not the best way either, at least not from my perspective. At the same time, I do believe there's some very pure souls who need to focus purely on what they're focusing on, right? And maybe letting any of that in changes that trajectory. I don't know. Not all of us have the same job on this planet. That's for sure. That I can feel.
Yeah. And you make a good point too, because the ones that are speaking in extremes are the loudest. So that's what we're hearing. That's what we're seeing the most. And the people that are in the middle are less likely to speak about it because they don't want to be bashed by either side. And really, for me, that's why it's so important for me to speak out, to give the people in the middle a voice, to let them know that they're not alone in what they're feeling. I had a lot of mixed comments because I also did a video about that article and I had a lot of really mixed comments. They started commenting right away, like everyone was triggered.
I would love to hear some of the comments, because that'll give me something to, because I'm wondering myself how this audience may be taking some of this information. So what were some of the comments you have already received?
Well, I have to say that the majority of them were very nice and were from people that also have been feeling these things. People that have never commented on my videos before have said, thank you for giving us a voice. These are all things that we're feeling too, but feel like we can't speak them out loud. And, thank you for giving us a voice. Then there was kind of the people on the one extreme, injecting that, just their opinions that this is a soul trap and the memory wipe and like that kind of stuff. Yeah. Like, really like hardcore, like pretty much you're making excuses for this and, that kind of stuff. But yeah, most of the comments in that way were coming from that side of things. Because in examining the possibility of this being a soul trap, we've attracted a lot of those people into our space that are holding these ideas in this extreme polarized way. And often that energy will kind of suppress any of the more balanced or lighter energies that are in our space and want to speak up but don't feel like they can. So it was nice to see that with that video they actually did speak up and say thank you. So
good. Yeah, that's good that they did, that they felt comfortable to do that. I'm looking right now at part of your article, the solution, and you put SOUL dash solution, balance and connection. It reminded me that, and I didn't even watch the whole thing, but I saw part of a video of a rather well-known, highly followed commentator on these realms, spiritual, who spent quite a little time talking about that word soul. And I got in on this conversation. I think it was a live, so I kind of listened to it for a little while, and then I didn't finish it just because of my schedule, etc. But they were focusing on the word soul, and what was coming out from that, which I found just fascinating, was the whole concept of a soul is a trap. Yeah. And the soul, and I'd already heard about like the false light, and I'd heard that quite a while ago, but you're right, it has ramped up. And so they were talking about that even that word is a trap, and so don't use that word. And then once again, I'm starting to think, well, just wait a second. We as humans, we communicate with words. We also communicate with energy, but we're not as good at that yet. We kind of do some telepathy and some other things, but still not so that we can just stop moving our
Right.
lips and making
Yeah.
sounds and using words. We're not there yet.
Right.
So maybe people are using the word soul because it's the word that they know. And I know that, giving attention and power and repetitive can do all of that. But just the word itself, wait a second, maybe it means, I don't know. The whole thing was sort of bothering me that they were that flat, definitive and decisive that the whole word and concept of soul is a trap. And I'm like,
Well, I'll tell you what we've seen.
okay.
So what I've kind of, what we kind of seen is that there is mind, body, soul, spirit. So, and what we've seen about the soul is that it's not a deception, but it is a way that it is the way that we experience these physical lives. So it's a part of physicality in a way. And we saw that the soul itself, it holds the duality. It holds the duality in this realm. I don't know. It's really difficult to explain with words again. And I actually, speaking of this specific topic, I'll send you a link to a near-death experience I watched last night. And the lady specifically talks about the difference between soul and spirit. And that was the mission she was given to come back and share with people. So the spirit is our God spark. The spirit is our God spark. It's the part of us that is connected to the one, which is another trigger word, by the way.
Right.
That is connected to all that is, and that exists kind of outside of this system. I guess it's like the concept that the wholeness of who we are exists outside of this inversion, this trap, whatever you want to call it. And that we can ultimately connect with when we get out of this system. But the soul, the part of us, will actually stay here, is the way I understand it.
So here's my thought of, and it connects back to the thing I said just a minute ago about taking that word. So I'm not saying this is it, but let's say that for me, when I ever said the word soul, I was thinking about that God spark that was me. Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. That my definition, here we go again, of what the God spark is. It's like, and then if you talk to enough people around the world, the different systems come in about, well, there's the underworld and the middle world and the overworld, and well, what system is it? And again, it's words and labels. So, right. But that's what we have right now. Right. We work with clients using energies, of course, but also using words as best as we can. So, yeah.
And I think what you're saying is the intention behind the word is what matters more than the word itself. And I totally agree.
Yeah. So now I'm curious about this person that you watched the NDE. My biggest curiosity was, is it someone you just ran across, or this person just recently had the experience and is sharing it? Or is this somebody who's been around for a while and it just came within your awareness? Do you know?
She had it many years ago, but I've never seen her before. I can't even remember her name off the top of my head, but no, she just popped into my field last night and I happened to watch it because the title was that she met the Grim Reaper. So I'm like, oh, I have to watch this.
Well, now that's interesting. Okay. So, the Grim Reaper doesn't actually bring warm, fuzzy feelings to people. Right.
So when she left her body, she was lifted up and out by these like sparkly angelic type beings and taken to this being who is or was the representation of the Grim Reaper. He did not appear as a scary skeleton with a scythe, but he was a more beautiful, sparkly being. He had a pair of scissors. And the scissors, he told her, were to cut her silver cord that attached her back to the body. Now, there was a lot of disclosure and truth drops in this NDE, But I feel like when you look deeper at it, you can see some of the deceptions that happen in afterlife realms. So I would definitely suggest watching it, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Because that entity, and she described him as, not scary or anything. He was just doing his job. And that, streams of consciousness run in and through our lives in many different ways. And some of those ways are even through shows and movies that we watch, where truth is often disclosed. And one of those shows I've been watching recently is called The Sandman, and it's on Netflix. And in that show, they show us how these different entities work. There's like dream realm entities, there's afterlife realm entities, and there's one entity in that show called death. And she's represented as a female, and she goes to each person who is ready to die, and she takes them and escorts them. They don't show you where she escorts them to, but my point in telling you that is she's just doing her job. She's not some scary evil entity, but she's doing her job. So then you have to question, well, okay, maybe these entities aren't necessarily dark and evil and scary, but they're still working for the system.
Right.
And where are they taking us, and why?
I think one of the first, I swear you probably had this too when you were young. One of the first things that fed my rebellious, shall we say, nature was a bumper sticker I saw when I was just a teenager. And I absolutely loved it. And I went and got it as soon as I possibly could. And that was, it's been around for the longest time, but it's question authority. Question authority. And, question everything, really. It should probably be, but question any kind of authority. So it makes me wonder, like scissors, well, did you have to give permission for the scissors to be used? And why there's just so many questions there. Just, I think, God, we're gullible. I've been gullible my life a lot. A lot. I've been gullible. And I don't want to be jaded, and I don't want to be,
right.
Where everything is unfortunate and everyone is out to get you. And that's not my nature either. But I have most certainly been gullible, and it's what I was struck in early 2020 about humanity as a are group.
Yeah.
And we'll see how that kind of plays out. I think there's a lot of people who are in different places. And at the same time, one of the things that I wrote down here was, what is it about people that they can't own up to say things like, you know what, I was wrong, or I used to think that, but I don't think that anymore, and here's why. And now I've sort of expanded my worldview so that that's not quite right anymore. But the go-to default position of most humans is to defend whatever that thing was that maybe they don't even believe anymore, or that was patently false and completely indefensible. Humans don't want to be wrong at all. What is it about that? What is that?
I find that it's just, it hurts their ego to be wrong. That's what it is. It hurts their ego to be wrong. I think we've been programmed in a way that to be wrong is bad, like it's so bad to be wrong. But I don't find that at all. Like, I have no problem admitting all the things that I used to believe. I was so gullible. And that's really how I found myself now into this space, kind of trying to sift out all the deception and find out what is true, because I have been tricked so many times.
Yep.
My first hypnosis session was a huge wake-up call. And my higher self says, you need to know how the darkness works, because you've been played by it and you don't even know you've been played by it. Like, that's how tricky it is.
Right.
And I think a lot of the polarization that's happening right now is because we're questioning.
Yeah.
We're questioning now, like, because 2020 was the big wake up call and beginning to see through all of these deceptions. So now we're really, really questioning, and that questioning can lead us into these some of these polarized spaces, where it's like, this isn't a school, this is a soul trap, and like, how dare you mention learning? Like, but I think it's coming from the realization, the anger, just the outrage of like, what's happening here,
Right.
and I understand that completely. And that's something that we have to process through and grieve and allow that anger to come forward, because, it is pretty messed up what's going on here. And yeah, people just don't want to admit that they've been wrong. So,
You know what I think is interesting, because, we meet, meaning, people in this community, whether you consider yourself a healer or a service to others practitioner, or simply interested in this topic, we meet, we listen, we hear a lot of very fascinating people who have a lot of fascinating stories. But there's something that I come back to, even thinking about 2020, all of those people who remote view and psychic readers and all that, show me one, show me one who got any of this on their radar.
right.
And
right.
I mean, really, in the comments below, all of you listeners out there, show me one, because so far I haven't seen it. And so that makes me question all kinds of other things. Like, we think we know some things, but maybe we don't have, even though we get hints, and some people have some incredible insights and incredible validations about their intuition and other kinds of information that comes through. Absolutely. I couldn't do this work without believing that. But sometimes I think we're so much more limited than we may know.
Mm-hmm.
But that gives me some hope, because I think that means there's so much more out there. There's so much more potential. There's so much more, I don't even know what, right?
Yeah.
That is left to explore, which kind of brings me to the people who think they have it all figured out. They're the ones that amuse me the most.
Yeah. 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 And then that is the question. You raise a really good point. What do we really have access to? What do we really have access to? Like, are we just tapping into the matrix itself? And the matrix is not going to reveal that, a plague is coming, and what are these higher beings bringing in through channelings and remote viewings and things like that? What are they bringing in? And what we found is that, some of the information may be based in truth, but what they're doing is lying by omission. They're not telling us the whole story. They're not showing us the full picture. They're leaving a hell of a lot out. I'll tell you that. They're leaving a hell of a lot out.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. There's this thought that's been going through my mind a little bit. And it's something, again, you touched on in your absolutely brilliant article, Spiritual Extremism. And that is the sort of individualized sovereignty versus, the collective one or source, and the balance in between those things. And I tend to think of humans sort of like flocks of birds, because flocks of birds can move like that, but there's still individual birds in there. At the same time, the bird flock as a group has a certain energy that encompasses and affects and has a certain direction, on each individual bird. And so what has brought me a little bit of hope, or the way I'm trying to think about it, is that there's more and more of us birds who are waking up. and I'm thinking, like, if enough of us in the flock actually do start to, and, waking up, it's a process, meaning just because you're going, okay, I used to think that, and that, I can't believe that this isn't what I thought. It's a process. You and I will talk in a year, and we will have more to talk about.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure. I'm absolutely sure. But I'm wondering if there isn't like a kind of a tipping point for human consciousness, like opening up and acknowledging some of this stuff. And I'm wondering when that tipping point is. That's when the flock can turn. So like right now, I see you and me, maybe, I don't know, we're in the middle somewhere and we're like trying to get the flock to go this way somehow, but the flock energy isn't quite there yet. But when enough
Yeah.
of us are, we can make the turn,
Yeah.
and not fly into the face of a cliff that's coming up.
I love that visual.
Oh, but
Yeah.
then, maybe a burst of light will come out if we do. So,
Yeah, and I think within the flock too, there are different groups of people awakening, and there's a lot of people awakening that aren't even speaking out about it. They're just kind of laying low and watching and observing and those kinds of things. So I think there's a lot more people awakening than we see and know.
I absolutely agree with that. And I remain hopeful. Staying in the positive column, because you get a little bit too much. I don't know. I think it can be it literally the weight of seeing some of what's awful in the world can really well, what's the point? Why am I even get up out of bed
Yeah.
today? And if you
Yeah.
feel any of that coming on, my suggestion to you all out there is turn off these dang devices, go outside. That's why I live on a farm. The animals keep me honest. And as you can see, I use the reference all the time. The animals and the trees and being outside will bring you back to that place a little bit. Sometimes I think we get overly focused.
Yeah. And what you see on the internet is not necessarily a true reflection of reality either.
Right.
So it's really, really important that we ground ourselves in an organic reality right now and what's actually happened in our personal lives, and to focus on the beauty.
Yeah.
Focusing on the beauty, like smell a flower, pet your dog, go for a walk, put your feet on the grass, like really the only really true, I think, pure energy on this earth is the earth energy itself and nature. So anchoring ourselves into that and focusing more on that than anything that we're seeing online, being on the devices, the TV, whatever it is, but taking yourself out of that altogether. Plus that energy builds up on top of you, that magnetic energy builds up on top of you. And then you do feel weighed down and sluggish and just tired and drained and heavy and like all of those things. So yeah, the earth will help to clear that energy from your body and reset your system. So yeah, I think that's a beautiful idea. I love it.
Just like you are supposed to ground yourself by touching something metal before putting fuel in your vehicle. That's the same with your body. You've collected some of this stuff, and sometimes it's just that touch of a tree or into the planet itself, which will help distribute that out and bring you back to neutrality. Well, we've kind of come up against our time limit today. Tina, thank you so much. Please tell everyone how they can find your blog. Of course, you can find both of us at quantumhealers.com, but where is your blog specifically if you want to point someone straight there? We will put the link, but tell us about your blog and your offerings.
It's quantumhealingwithtena.com, Tena. And we offer beyond quantum healing sessions, remote spirit release, which is basically like an energy clearing, body scan sessions where you can go into your body and clear any stuck memories, trauma, emotions, things like that, anything that comes up for you. And then there's other little things too you can see on our website. So you can find our YouTube channel too, which is also it's Quantum Healing with Tina and Karen.
Okay, super, super. And just a little post-show news. We are still We are still looking for our Quantum Connect class to come out really soon. Tina's in this class too, in a really big way. We had a really fun Quantum Connect session. She's going to be in that class as an example and as somebody who helped me put that together, tying up all of the final knots and bows to present that to everyone, a way to connect to your higher self that isn't trance inducing and is very quick and just fun. And also there's about 2 or 3 seats, I think, left available in the immersion class here in Kansas, which is happening in less than a month now, the 2nd of October. And that is for BQH practitioners who've already gone through the course. If you wanted to and you haven't gone through the course, you still have a little bit of time. You could possibly do that. It's to deepen your understanding and connection with all of this stuff with your peers in a really wonderful, immersive way without having to go through and learn the mechanics from the ground up. So we're doing that here in Kansas in October. I'm really looking forward to that. And I think that's all for now. And if you are a service to others practitioner, please know that you are welcome to join us at quantumhealers.com. We are a guru-free group and community. We support each other as we support our clients. And we have a worldwide directory that will help you connect with others all across the planet. And that's it for now. Thanks again, Tina.
Thanks so much for having me, Candace. It was really great to catch up with you. Thanks.
It's always great to connect with you. Blessings. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.